we have received.
Haroon Ullah is a terrorism expert and the chief strategy officer for the Broadcasting Board of Governors. And he joins me now. His new book, Digital World War, Islamists, Extremists, and the Fight for Cyber Supremacy, details the impact of the internet and social media on terrorism, Islam, and the Muslim world. So, Haroon, from the social movements of the Arab Spring to the online radicalization of terrorists around the globe, the internet has had profound effects in this regard. What would you say are the most significant impacts these technologies have had?
Yeah, that's a great question, Elaine. Well, there's a couple of things that have happened and how it's sort of reshaped. So first is that, even as little as last week, people were talking how about the end is near for ISIS, because in Raqqa we were seeing images of Western-supported militias, overrun. And in a lot of ways, not only is it premature, but ISIS in many ways is winning. And it's winning for exactly the reason because they're able to use technology. And for them, they're making unexpected gains on the battlefield that means most to them, which is the information battlefield. So, for example, the number one person on Twitter in the Middle East, which many people don't know, but motivates people like Saipov and other foreign fighters, is a religious cleric named Mohammed al-Arafi. He's a religious cleric based in Saudi Arabia. He has 19.5 million followers on Twitter. And he's not only just prolific on Twitter, he's prolific on Snap and other platforms. We've never heard of him here in the U.S., but yet he's gone straight to young people, and he's probably the single biggest reason younger people are buying tickets to go to Syria, Iraq, or doing the type of incidents, the tragedy that we saw yesterday. And he's using this technology in a sophisticated way.
So how are governments in these regions using the internet and social media?
Well, governments are, by nature, slow-moving, and they have a tough time using the technology to counteract it. So when you have a person like Mohammed al-Arafi, he started as like a small-town preacher, almost like a third-rate preacher. He was able to bypass and become the sort of Billy Graham of the Middle East. He's able to use technology, he's able to fail fast, and he's able to go directly to these consumers, to these young people that are hungry for the content. Governments move slow. They take, days to maybe get out a tweet or to put out a meme. And the other problem is that governments, when you have government-affiliated messengers, whether it's the Ministries of Information or Religious Affairs, by definition, they are not as legitimate as people not affiliated or not seen as part of the government. So young people look at them and say, you guys are part of the problem.
Well, how are these changes affecting relations with the West?
Well, in a lot of ways, you find that there's no more borders. And so these non-state actors like ISIS have outsized influence. They've been able to build this sort of ecosystem that crosses borders. You've had now almost 6,500 foreign fighters from Europe and from the U.S. go abroad. And in a lot of ways, what we're not watching is that ISIS 3.0 is right around the corner, a group called Tahrir al-Sham, which a lot of people don't focus on. And so ISIS has spawned these copycats. They've built this ecosystem, a sort of Club Med for foreign fighters. And what they've done essentially is they want to pull the West into this civilizational conflict. They want this war. They're getting free media coverage with these horrific attacks, and they want to motivate. I was watching last night on encrypted channels like Telegram and others. They were so inspired, talking about other people, about how this is something like such a momentous event. They were putting out memes, and they were mobilizing more fanboys.
So disturbing to hear that. So then in what ways would you say social media is either helping or hindering the war on terror?
Well, that's a really good question. I think in a lot of ways, you think of social media as a tool like any other tool, and it's how it's being used. And so I think of this model, I write a lot about this in my book, it's called the 1-9-90 model. So on social media, 1% of people are creating content and key influencers like Mohammed al-Arafi. 9% are people that are sharing content and curating content. And 90%, the vast majority, are people that are just passive consumers. And so the key thing about whether it's a hindrance or whether it's a help is that 90%, that's where the thousands of young Malalas are, the future Malalas, that those stories need to be told, they need to be amplified, and that's how you counteract the Mohammed al-Arafis of the world. That's how you stop the next Saifullah Saipovs.
All right, really sobering to hear about this new landscape. Haroon Ullah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lane.